is in the building. Facto.
Welcome to Ignorance Is Contagious, a podcast about stories and the lessons you learn from them. My name is James LeGrand.
And I'm Abdul Majid.
In today's episode, we're telling stories. In an attempt to get our viewers to get to know us better, we're telling stories about our past, giving some insights into our philosophies, and sharing some things about ourselves you might have wanted to always know. As always, with us today is the always funny and lover of all things funny, Kristen J.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So I got several emails from several different people giving their commentary about us, and I realized that we never really did a proper introduction into who we are or how we got here or how even all of us know each other other than James and myself, of course. So I wanted to do an episode specifically just focusing on us, maybe giving some insights into ourselves, maybe telling some stories that people might not have heard or might not have told publicly before. But before I start that, I want to do a proper introduction. So James, tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, anything that you think is relevant to share with the public.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thank you. So my name is James LeGrand, originally from New Jersey. I spent the first 40 years of my life in New Jersey. So went to high school, college, everything in New Jersey. In 2010, relocated to Florida. Story about that. I saw the housing bubble coming, sold my house, sat on the gain and waited. And then when the bubble burst, I decided to buy the house I plan to retire in. I thought that was going to be in Edison, New Jersey. I love Edison, New Jersey. Said to my wife, hey, this is way worse than I ever thought. Let's think about where else we might want to live and retire. We happened to be visiting my dad down in Florida. He and my stepmom were there. We visited with them, decided Florida would be our location. The company I was working for at the time, it's actually still the company I work for, asked them if I could transfer to our Florida office. They said, not only can you do the transfer, do you mind picking up another job? So I was carrying 2 jobs while I was down here, but bought a wonderful home that I plan to stay in till the end. We raised our 2 boys here, and since I'm in Florida, we have a little girl as well. So my wife and I have 3 kids. 2 27-year-olds and an 11-year-old little girl. I'm a martial artist. This May will make 27 years I've been involved in Shaolin Kung Fu. And I do train every single day, 4:44. I wake up every morning and train. I know I'm crazy. Why 4:44? My birthday is April 4th. 4 is my number. So 4/4 is my birthday. So 4:44 is when I get up. Outside of that, I'm an author. I've written a couple of books. I co-wrote a book with Abdul, actually called Ignorance Is Contagious, the title of our podcast here. And just happy to be here.
Kristen, tell us something about yourself. Introduce yourself to our audience. So tell us
Hi,
whatever
everybody.
you like.
I'm Kristen. I'm kind of boring. I don't have this wonderful thing going on. I'm from Jersey and still here in Jersey. See you. That's the one thing I give my mother full credit for because she forced me to do that. Music major, but I don't really talk about that too much because I was classically trained on the piano from the tender age of 4, but I'm trash today. It's horrible. Single mother of a grown, wonderful son, Ari, who lives out in Cali. He's a footwear designer, my dude. Super proud of him. I don't have a whole lot going on. I do love comedy. I love stand-up comedy specifically. That's about the story of my life. I was doing a lot of traveling before the pandemic, but now I'm not.
So before I go into mine, Kristen, you have a really extensive history of comedy because you do have a pretty well-documented history being in the comedy world. Is that something you want to share or no?
I mean, I started with the original Def Comedy Jam. That was great. I didn't realize what it was while I was in it, how huge it was until I guess when you start to see how people respond to you and how they react to you. And then fast forward years later, when I hear people discuss it, it's a good feeling to know that I was a part of something like that. So yeah, that's
And even
that's the humble
even
beginning.
even I don't know if it's prior to that or maybe at the same time as that, the Peppermint Lounge. You did
I
your
was
thing
the
with
bitch at the door. I was the bitch at the door. Literally, that's what they called me, the bitch at the door.
still. I remember
No.
I remember the Mint being like the place that everybody wanted to go to.
Well, there was a spot before that too. There was Club 88 and where I was working
Mm.
also. But then before that, it was Terminal D's. I didn't work at Terminal D's, but I did work with Club 88 and then the infamous Peppermint. And yeah, I was a bitch at the door because I made people pay the cover charge. A lot of people, you know how you have the local heroes, everybody's a celebrity. I'm so and so, I'm with such and such. And I was like, nice, $10 cover. They hated me. They hated me because I didn't acknowledge their local
If they
celebrity.
were such a celebrity, they could fork up 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was the fact that they just didn't want to pay. And they would be like, I'm on the guest list. And there never was a guest list. So it's like, there's no guest list, $10. I did
What
it to
about now?
too. I did it to Shaquille O'Neal too. I'm sorry. Speaking of stories, and I don't usually have stories, but I did do that. They always have my boy. Every celebrity has my boy who does the speaking for them and everything. It wasn't even a manager, it was my boy. He comes up, he's like, yeah, we got Shaq. I was like, really? Okay. And I could see Shaq because he's like 9,000 feet tall. He said, I said, how many people are with you? And he was like, we got 8 people with us. I was like, $80.
Did they pay?
I don't think they paid because security was notorious for running up and kiboshing the whole thing. So the respect levels for me dropped immensely. So locals, that's why I was a bitch at the door. Yeah, it was a struggle. So I was like, you know what? I can't do this. And because I lived in the area, I was like, I don't feel safe. So I'm dipping out.
Is there anything recently that you've been working on? Any comedy shows that you do now?
Yeah,
Nope.
there's some there's some stuff.
Some things here and there.
Freelance on some things. Another thing that first of all, anything Dave Chappelle just brings me joy, honestly. So I did have an opportunity to work on his The Dreamer special, and it was in a moment when Dave is talking about how he came full circle because that was that venue that they did it in, the Lincoln Theater in DC, was the first place he did his stand up. So when he's like 20 years later, I'm bringing it back full circle. I was like, wow, damn, I am a part of something special. This feels good. When you're present in the moment and you take it in and you realize what it is, that feels good.
So I'm Abdul Majid. I'm originally from New Jersey. I am a writer. I got into writing TV shows after I did a long stint in television production. I started off as a sound engineer for a company called Metro Channels, which is part of AMC. They had MSG. But anyway, I started there for a while, worked as a sound engineer, moved from sound engineer to a talent booker because we had a daily music video show called The Daily Beat. While I was at The Daily Beat working on music videos, I had an idea for a film. I wrote this film, not having any idea of how to write a script. That happened to get into the hands of some people because I knew while working in television production, I met a lot of people and I was out all the time. Matter of fact, I was out all the time starting at like 15. I was always outside in the city, running the streets at nighttime at clubs. So people knew me. And then when I got this TV gig, I got a little bit more respect. Like, oh, you working in TV? Oh, because there was only a few of us who worked in that arena. A lot of us, all my friends worked in music. They were all record people, A&Rs, record executives, PR people for all the different record labels that were in New York. I was the only one that worked in television, or one of the few ones that worked in television, specifically at this particular channel, who had a daily music show. So I was able to get all their artists onto the show because I was booking all the talent, which gave me a little bit of credibility and a little bit of a way to maneuver in the industry better. So I started networking. That introduced me to some more people, which introduced me to some film people, which allowed me to write my script, which allowed me to subsequently get a deal. That deal film never came out because I got shelved, but I was able to get in the industry and meet some people. And then I had a guy I knew. So I knew a guy. This guy worked on a TV show. I can't say the name of the show, but this guy worked on a really huge television program. The guy also had a really bad drug addiction and he had to go into rehab. So while he went into rehab, he knew I was a writer and he asked me, could you write a couple episodes and I will submit them under my name, but I will give you the money for it because he didn't want to lose his job. So I said, okay. I wrote them, I got the money, and all those shows I did aired on TV.
You were ghostwriting for television?
I ghost wrote for, when I tell you it's one of the major TV shows, I have several episodes out there. I ghost wrote for several television shows.
Can you talk about that, or are you under contract where you cannot say what
I signed an NDA many moons ago that said I could never reveal the name of the person or the name of the show. So I can't say the name of the person or the name of the show. But James, you know the program. Like it was a pretty big, it was a really big television show. And that's how I got on, which got my name out there. After that, a lot of other people came to me to ghostwrite. So I started ghostwriting for a bunch of other people. After I ghostwrote for a bunch of other people, it connected me to some other industry people, which then turned out to be working my way from being a ghostwriter to trying to get more myself on TV, which eventually happened. I have some film out now. I have a film being shot now. I'm in the writer's room right now for another film. I also did a project that won several awards at Cannes Film Festival and some other film festivals over the summer, which I co-produced, and I was one of the writing consultants on the project. But most of my things, I love stories. I love telling stories. I think everything is funny. I tend not to have the best filter. So some of the things I think are funny in today's society will probably get you canceled. And I tend to say it anyway, which is probably why I'm usually canceled. I think that's how I know Kristen. I've met Kristen through a comedy show that she was working at with someone that she was associated with who knew our brother Jabir. He was trying to do some promotion stuff. I knew some people at XM Radio who got him to do an interview on XM Radio to promote this particular comedy show. And he said, you can come to the comedy show whenever you want. Just connect with Kristen, and gave me Kristen's information, or I forgot how it went, Kristen, but that's how Kristen and I connected via comedy show. So this one particular person.
She charged you $10?
No, she didn't, because I had free range of getting into the show as often as I wanted to, and he told her that.
You got past the bitch at the door?
Yeah.
Wait, let me be clear though. That was at a different venue.
Different venue.
Only was I before. But this particular show, I was behind the scenes working on the actual show.
Gotcha.
I don't remember getting the memo that you had free range like that.
Yeah, yes you did. Yes you did.
You are not somebody that needs to be given that kind of power.
So one thing I guess you'll learn about me when you listen to the podcast long enough is I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people. And I have a lot of stories.
Facts.
So if I go someplace, I probably know a guy who knows a guy. So from here to LA to out of the country, I just know a lot of people. I befriended a lot of people within this industry, and it's helped a lot. Hopefully it'll help this particular podcast. Hopefully.
All right.
My first question, James, tell me a story about the time you overcame a fear.
This was a big one for me. So I alluded before that I still work for a living. I work for a Wall Street investment bank. It's a major Wall Street investment bank, and I'm a senior leader there. So I've held titles of senior vice president and director, and still moving up in that company. But after George Floyd was killed, the company really began to understand that they had a problem, that they wanted to understand more about the experience of Black males, not just in society, but within the company. I was a part of a diversity and inclusion group, and they said, James, would you mind speaking to the executive committee and telling your story about what it's like being a Black male in society and being a Black male within the company? And I don't scare easy. That one scared me to the bone. Why? I spent my entire career really focused on my accomplishments. I wanted people to see me for what I could do, not for race, because race is, everyone's got a different opinion on race. I didn't want that to be a factor. And I got enough stories of, of things happening because of being Black and male. So I never talked about it in a professional setting, never spoke on it. Now I'm being specifically asked to not only speak about it, but at the executive committee. And that's a big deal. The executive committee are all the people that report up to the chief executive office, inclusive of that CEO. I decided to do it. And then I decided okay, they want it, I'm gonna give it to them. I'm gonna tell them everything. So I tied in the George Floyd story. I tied in the Breonna Taylor story. There was a gentleman named Christian Cooper. That you may know him better as the Central Park bird watcher in the situation that happened with him. I tied everything in and showed how it related to me, how I had a similar situation happen. And by the time I was done, not a dry eye in the room. And all these are executives. Everyone's in tears. And I was like, what have I done? Did I make a mistake doing this? It turned out as soon as I hung up, the CEO called me and he was lost for words. And he was like, given everything you just said, I can't believe you show up every day the way you show up, with a smile on your face, ready to work, ready to inspire other people. And I never really understood what you had to do just to get here. And he said to me, anything you need, anytime, you call me and it's done. And I'll say that he absolutely has made good on that promise. So I overcame a major fear there, the fear of them seeing me as I actually am, seeing me as Black. Now, that may sound weird for someone who's not Black, right? Of course, we see you as Black. You can't help it. You're Black. But when you're in a corporate setting and you focus, where a corporate setting is so focused on accomplishment, it's real easy to start seeing people for what they've done last and not see them for what they look like. In this case, I was tearing all that away and saying, now you're going to see, and the first thing I said to them is, when I'm done with this, you will never again be able to not see me as Black. And that is also true. So the fear there was that going to damage my career? Was that going to hold me back in some way? Was I helping the organization in the short term to damage my career in the long term? That was the fear. The answer is no. It actually ended up helping me in a big way. I ended up doing that speech several more times. One of the people that heard that speech actually made me a job offer within the firm to take on what was the largest program, the largest project in the company, with a $90 million budget every year for the next 4 years. And then that just ended and turned into a new role that I just accepted a couple of weeks ago, where I'm going to be in charge of an entire campus, 2 large buildings, and over 2,500 people. So that moment, I'm glad I made the decision that I made, because it did provide an insight that they would not have had otherwise. And by the way, up until that point in time, there were no other Black people. There were no Black people on the executive committee. Afterwards, so now we have some Black folks on that executive committee. But it allowed me to see that I could be fully authentic in that one realm that I never spoke about, that there were a group of people that could accept it, not only accept it, but truly learn from it, and that it didn't have to hold back my career. Now, is that the same story someone else would tell in another company? No, right? We know there's other places where that's not possible. I was just fortunate to be at a company and with an executive committee where I actually knew every single person on the executive committee already. So they already knew my work, they already knew my character. But this was introducing an element that we had never spoken about. And that was a serious risk to my career. I literally, before doing that, dusted off my resume and updated it in case I had to, hightail it out of town and find something else. I'm thankful I didn't have to do that. And I still work for that company and very honored to be there.
When the CEO said that you could ask him for whatever you want, did you ask him for a raise and a promotion from the door?
I didn't. Because in this gentleman, I have the utmost respect for. He has always been in my corner. He's just always been a great leader. It was a year and a half after that when I actually called upon him for help. I was being put up for promotion from senior vice president to director, and I needed 3 sponsors. Right, part of our program is you need 3 sponsors, and then it goes to a committee. The committee reviews all the applicants and then makes the decision on who goes to the next level. There's senior vice president, director, and then managing director. So this is a pretty high role we're talking about. So I called him and asked him if he would be okay being one of my sponsors. It's pretty unheard of to have a CEO be a sponsor for a promotion. And without hesitation, he said, that's a no-brainer. What do I need to do? And literally, I had him, I had the chief operating officer of technology, and then I had one other person from our audit team. And thankfully, everything went well. In fact, it's a funny story there. When my manager was approached by the person on the promotion committee to talk about me, he said to her, I can't believe this. He's like, look at this guy's sponsors. Like, what? No one does this. Who has CEOs and COOs as their sponsors? And she said to him, now you understand what it takes to get promoted when you're Black in this company. Right. So like he knows that he has to go to that level so that it's without question that he deserves his promotion. So that's kind of how that went. So yeah, I didn't tap him right away, but it was within the course of the hard work I was already doing, already being put up for promotion. I just needed him to kind of co-sign for me, and he did.
The person who put you up for the promotion, were they Black?
Black woman.
So even after that speech,
yeah,
it took a Black woman to get you promoted. Even after that speech, with all that room, it took a Black woman to get you promoted.
I wouldn't say that. She had the ability to put in my application. Absolutely true. But the promotions were done by committee, which are a committee that does not look like us on this podcast, right? So they're all looking at each of these candidates. Each person on the committee gets 3 of those candidates. They have to go research, come back, and then represent that candidate back to the committee. So I had someone representing me to the committee that I'd never known or met, based on the information that they saw in my application and the information they received from my sponsors. And that's how I got promoted. And usually it takes 2 or 3 attempts to get promoted. I got promoted on the first shot, getting to director. That's another big deal.
Good stuff.
So yeah, it may have taken a Black woman to put me in, but she wasn't the person that promoted me.
I got so many jokes, I'm gonna leave it alone. Kristen!
I know you do. I know you do.
Kristen, tell me a story about the time you overcame a fear.
I really don't have stories, and I can't believe people actually really want to know anything about me because my life is really that boring. But
I know, right? So next, the time I overcame.
I want to hear the story, Kristen. I want to hear it. Talk
I mean, I don't have stories.
I
I just have moments. Like I can tell you one fear that was definitive, and that was the actual delivery of my son. I couldn't believe I was pregnant the whole time. I was just like, I'm really pregnant. And I did want to have kids in my life, but I mean, I was just like, I'm really pregnant. I was even at my shower like, wow, I guess this is really happening. This is really going down. Stomach all poked out. Looked like I had a basketball under my shirt. And so then there's that moment where, and I even said to the doctor, I don't know that I can do this, because I looked at the size of my belly and I knew where he was supposed to exit from. And I was like, this is not a match. This is not gonna work. But I pulled through, and then the next issue was, okay, am I gonna be a good mom? But it all kicked in. But yeah, that moment, and labor pains, crazy. It felt like, if you can imagine being a wishbone, your legs in a wishbone, and somebody snapping it apart to make a wish. That's what I felt like. I know, right? That's crazy. But hey, that's my story. Thank you for listening.
How'd you get, in terms of the fear, like, was there anything that helped you prior to delivery to kind of bring it together? Or were you in that state of fear the entire time?
I wasn't in that state of fear the entire time, but there just was a moment where it was like, wait, it's happening right now. Like I had gone through a couple of courses, breathing, all that other stuff, the little Mars thing and everything. And I was pretty much like, oh, I'm gonna have a baby. I guess, yeah, it's happening. But it was just the moment of the actual delivery where it's like, my body was like, okay, we're now preparing for this baby to exit. And I was just like, how are you gonna do that? How's that gonna happen? And ironically, I had one of the best pregnancy and deliveries that a woman could possibly have. No tears, no nothing. My babe came right on out and everything was smooth. I mean, it wasn't a long delivery. It wasn't quick, but it wasn't a long, painful, bad delivery. I did have an epidural. Because I was just like, yo, that's crazy. If there's a way that I in that moment, I know you always like life lessons out of things. I realized if I don't have to go through pain, I will not go through pain. So yeah, shoot me in the back. And the needle is insane. And I had this Caribbean woman. First of all, when I came in the hospital, I like ran in there like Lucy Ricardo and just grabbed the counter and was like, help me. And she was like, come with me. People been having babies, women been having babies all your life, and they're gonna keep having them. And I was just like, really? Really? So then when they're getting ready to give me the epidural, they say, don't breathe, don't move, don't make any moves, don't sneeze, don't cough. Like they're telling you everything that your body does naturally, don't do it. So I'm sitting there like, but when that contraction comes, you kind of want to either inhale or you want to just do something, but they're like, don't do anything. So I got through it. So it was in that moment of how am I going to execute this? How does this happen? How does this work? Because my stomach is sitting up real high and the exit is not that big. But the female body is equipped.
Can you say in the same Jamaican accent, I'm Miss Cleo, call me now. Welcome to the Psychic Work Network.
I'm Miss Cleo, call me now. Welcome to the Psychic Network. That was a horrible Jamaican accent. That was a horrible Jamaican accent. And me like Miss Cleo, you know.
So you said previously that you only had one son. Did this birth make you not want another have another child?
Not at all. Not at all. Actually, because like I did say, overall, it was the best version of a pregnancy delivery that a woman could have. No tears. Everything was beautiful. No problems. Healthy baby. Everything was wonderful. It was my life setup that I was like, I need to cut no more kids. Because I'm like, kids cost and I want to be able to afford what I'm bringing them into. So I wasn't situated for more than one child. So didn't happen. And I'm good. I'm good.
For real on the
regrets not-
cost. After putting 2 through college, for real on the cost.
2 at the same time. That's a difference of the tax.
Yeah. My son and my stepson are the same age, so they both went through college at the same time.
Oof. Or twins. You talking about twins?
Step twins, we'll call them. Step twins.
I mean,
Ghetto twins. No, ghetto twins is something else, actually.
Yeah, I know about
Ghetto twins like 2
got
different
ghetto
women at the same time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no.
What are
ghetto
Irish
twins.
Irish twins are under 9 months, right? Something like that.
That's born within 12 months.
And then there's twins that occupy the same womb at the same time. That's a whole nother
we,
show.
We have Abdul and I have a brother and sister.
Twins. Yeah. Do you have any regrets about not having any other kids, or you said you're good with how it went?
I wish I would have had some more, but I don't want to regret that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to live in a regret of, I wish I had more kids. I would have liked to have had more kids, but that's not what it is. So I'm going to rest well with the homie I got.
So the time I overcame a fear would possibly be the podcast I worked on prior to this one. I don't like public speaking at all. As much shit as I talk on a regular, everyday, consistent basis. When it comes to getting in front of an audience and having to convey a message, I just don't like doing it. I get my hands get clammy, my voice starts to crack, I start to lose my train of thought by the things that I want to say. I don't like public speaking at all. And the irony is, I'm constantly asked to speak publicly at other things, and I always turn it down. I get asked to do podcasts all the time. I get asked to do TV shows, to talk all the time, and nothing more than the fact that if you don't know anything about me, you know that 1, I could tell a pretty decent story. 2, I joke a lot, so I have my version of what I think is funny. And 3, I have a lot of information stuck in my head, and I can convey that information to a particular audience pretty well. So I do a lot of reading, so I can always take a story and take a message based on the things that I found and converge it together or meld it together to give a somewhat insightful story with a message at the end of it. That's how we got to this. Well, the book in itself was based on the fact that I love telling stories and I wanted to tell a message. And I knew this is where James comes in. So I had this idea to do this book called Ignorance Is Contagious, and I wanted to tell all these stories, and I wanted to have the stories to have a meaning behind it. But anytime anybody would read the story, they'd laugh, and they would never take what I said as a lesson. They would think, "Oh, you're just talking shit." So I asked James, I said, "Could you?" Because James is a life coach. James is very knowledgeable. He comes across as a sage because his demeanor, his behavior, and a whole host of other reasons that people respect his word as a lesson based off how he says it and just who he is as a person. So I asked him to come on board with this particular book, and together we co-authored this book called Ignorance is Contagious based off of that. But the idea was pretty much because people just kept asking me to talk, and I didn't want to talk publicly, but I did want to share the information or tell the stories. And that was my way of sort of putting my foot in the pond in terms of getting these stories out there, which then became another iteration because then Kristen came along. Kristen might have been before that. I don't know. It was somewhere in the line. Kristen had a radio show. She asked me to help on the radio show. And while I was on the radio show, I was able to talk, which broke the ice a little bit more in terms of me speaking publicly. But I didn't have to show myself. I just could just talk crap and mostly run the board and do some other stuff that we did. And then that moved into it's sort of it's always the same idea, just manipulate a little bit better to make me feel more comfortable, because that moved into a podcast I did with my friend Christy Ferris called This Week in Black People Shit. And that was more political based and more current event based. We took current event stories and we spoke about it. It's more like what everybody's doing now with the podcast, with these particular podcasts. But it wasn't the exact idea that I wanted, because it wasn't telling stories, but it was speaking publicly and conveying information about things that I knew about or research that I've done about things. So that then moved into this one, because that podcast, after doing like almost 60 episodes, COVID hit. We were doing it through COVID, and after COVID, we took a hiatus, and then that podcast sort of went away for no bad reasons. It just went away. COVID ended, people have live, people started going back to acting. I had to get in the writer's room some more. A bunch of stuff happened. And then this version of it came about, and I was thinking about it for a very long time. Do I want to jump out there in the market? Because I remember having conversations with Kristen specifically about so many voices being out there all the time. Like everybody's talking all the time. And I just didn't want to be one of those people talking about current events and what's new. And so the book came back, resurfaced itself again. The idea of how about we just take one story outside of this particular episode, because we're going to be telling multiple stories, but we take one story and really hone in on the story and dissect it, but make it fun, make it funny, talk a lot of shit. And then in the end, give people a lesson that we got from the stories, almost like a book report that you would share in school. It's sort of a similar setup. So, but the fear was, to go back to the fear was I don't like public speaking, but I'm constantly asked to do it. But I also understood, because I read this book called The Alchemist, and The Alchemist talked about your personal legend. When within that story, he said, if you keep ignoring it, this your personal legend will keep coming to you over and over and over and over again, trying to get you to attempt to do the thing that you're supposed to do. And if you keep ignoring it, that voice will dissipate, and after a while, you won't hear it anymore. And I was concerned about that happening, because people constantly came to me about speaking publicly, speaking. They would say, just talk, just come on our show and just talk, just do what you do, tell jokes, make fun of people, just talk. And I would always say no, or say no to most things except for a few things. BKS1 Radio was one of them. Kristen Show was one of them. Like I would dibble dabble into it, but I'd be asked more times to do it than the times I would accept. I'd accept maybe like 10% of the things I was asked to do. But I knew, going back to The Alchemist, I knew that if I didn't answer this one last time saying, hey, you should do the podcast again, that maybe that voice would dissipate and the opportunity would not be there again, because you're always on the brink of it, but you never fully thrust yourself into the world of that like you're supposed to. So that was the fear. I didn't like public speaking. I still to this day don't like public speaking. but I force myself now to do it for the purposes of this podcast. And so thus far, it's gone pretty well. Kristen, what you got?
What made you accept my request to have you help me with the show?
Okay, so this is the Kristen appreciation moment. This will not happen often. We're going to do a Christian appreciation moment right now. So one, I felt comfortable around you because our friendship is based off a lot of similar humor, similar jokes. And I knew whatever I would say, even if it was crazy, you could take it and spin it and do something else with it. Or you would just, like, you have a really good personality. You're very, very funny. I don't know if people know that about you. I don't think anybody knows that about you. Actually, I'm just going, but you're very funny. So I accepted the fact that you offered, for one. I felt comfortable speaking freely around you, which is a major part of it. Public speaking, and I think James and you know this better, you have to be able to edit yourself properly. Mm-hmm. And I don't do the best job of editing myself properly. I just say what comes to mind sometimes. And sometimes it goes over well and people think it's funny. And sometimes people think it's the most disrespectful thing that anyone's ever said in life. So with that being said, I always didn't take a lot of things because I knew I would have to self-edit. But around you, around James, and several other people, I felt comfortable enough to just say whatever and didn't care. Two, I didn't have to come up with the stories. I didn't have to initiate anything. I just had to show up and you could talk and I would add in my 2 cents. I'd be like the Flavor Flav to your Chuck D. And boy, every once in a while. And that was it. So
no, you had your own segment. Did you forget you had the conspiracy theories?
I had the conspiracy theories because that's something I'm really into. But we really didn't delve into that as much as possible. I didn't for the same reason as though because I didn't want any of the backlash that came with it. And I could hide behind you. No jokes there. I could just hide behind you and you be the lead person. And I could jump out there every once in a while to say a few things and then not have to be the focal point of this whole thing.
Okay. So, well, thank you.
You're welcome. But I think the most important part of it was that you presented an opportunity that was welcoming, that I felt that I could speak. I felt comfortable. I knew regardless of what I said, you had my back and you would cover me. And that was a major part of it, that I knew that you had my back and that you wouldn't let me flounder out there in the wind. You'd protect me a bit if I said something too crazy. So that was one of the major
reasons. The lowest bidder, please. Who is this guy? There he is, officer.
Yeah.
Legit, spelled M-A-J-I-D. Yes, that's him.
My next question, James, tell me your story about the time you won something.
All right, cool. So my family and I, we moved from New Jersey to Florida. We're getting to know Florida better. We're walking through this one place in Orlando called International Drive. We go into this place that has helicopters. You can do helicopter rides, not with the intention of getting on one, but I just went to check it out. And there was one of those raffles, right? Fill out this ticket, you might win a trip to the Bahamas, right? And as I'm filling it out, my wife goes, "You already know you're going to win, right?" So I fill this thing out, put it in, forget about it, right? We finish doing what we're doing. A couple of weeks later, I get the phone call. "Congratulations, you won a trip to the Bahamas." Okay, so my wife and I decided to do it. We took the trip to the Bahamas. It was 100% legit. We were in in Bahamas, and it was amazing. And what was interesting, so number one, I needed to relax. I realized how much I need to relax from time to time. I need to unplug and just chill. I really did do that, which was awesome. And number two, I learned a lot about the people in the Bahamas, and man, talk about laid back. It seemed that every person I met had 14 kids. It was, and they all said for the same reason. They all said, "Oh, this the conch. There's this conch dish that everyone there eats, and apparently that's some form of aphrodisiac or somehow inspires fertility." But I can't tell you the number of people I met that were like, "Yeah, I've got 14 kids," and said it like, "Yeah, McDonald's sells hamburgers, right? Yeah, I got 14 kids." But I love the Bahamas, love the very sweet people there, had a wonderful time. and definitely look forward to going back. But my wife will tell you that I have a knack for winning things, and I'm not. It's true, but I don't think about it. It's just one of those things that I just do what I do, and every now and then those types of blessings will fall in my lap, and I'm always appreciative of them.
When they said the conch dish in their Caribbean accent, when they actually trying to say the cock dish, and the cock is an aphrodisiac.
Oh,
No, when they say conch, you understood conch.
They weren't saying, "Hey, cockers was getting everybody pregnant out here."
While that makes sense, that's not what they said.
like a snail, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah,
Have-
like it's
ha-
I
Snail
comes
that
in.
makes
There's a
the
shell.
big seashell. The
Yeah,
seashell. That's what
right.
they
It lives in the shell. Yeah, it lives in the seashell. But
Kristen, have
that's a
you had
very
the conch
popular
dish
dish in the
before?
Bahamas.
live. No, I passed on it actually.
You didn't like the conch dish?
I passed on it. I don't know if I would have liked it. I passed on it just because of the name. I was like, you know what? No.
That's why you
And I
got one
promise you,
kid.
after I found out that people were attributing that to multiple kids, I did not take the conch dish. Still have not tried that.
The conch will save you all. Kristen,
Yes.
tell me about the time. Tell me a story about the time you won something.
I won something. This is the first time where winning felt like, wow, I could really win. I was in the fourth grade and it was some academic challenge. And there was this pen, this was a fourth grade. It was a pen that had like a stack of maybe 12 small, colorful pins, and they all stacked on top of each other to create this 12-inch like pen. It was just so cool to me in the fourth grade. So whatever I had to do, I did the academic challenge and I was just like, I really want that pen. But like James, didn't think anything else about it. Turned around later in the class when she was calling out everything. I won the pen. And I was just like, oh my God, I won the pen. I won. I won. I love it. I love it. Winning feels really, really good. And so another thing that why that stuck out for me was my mother's constantly saying, I have the worst luck. I never win, referring to herself. And as a child, you hear what your parents say. When you hear something repeatedly, even when you're not trying to hear it, it sinks in. So when I won that pen, I told myself, she doesn't win, you do. So from then on, it was like, you are a winner. You win. You have good luck. My mother still has the saying to this day. 10,000 people in the stadium and the bird shits on me. Like, how pessimistic can you be? And it's like, I have to do self-therapy to make sure that I don't absorb what she thinks and feels and how she is. So I declared myself in the fourth grade a natural winner. That's
So,
All right.
so when you started manifesting, or did you start manifesting more wins after coming up with that idea of that's her, that's on her, that's not me?
I want to say that actually, I like that you use the word manifest, because when I look back on that moment, that was my first realized manifestation. So I think I kind of messed up the formula for myself, because when you do something by default, you're just doing it. And I've always gotten things my way. But then somehow when I started dipping into the formula, like, oh, I'm going to get this. Now I'm messing up the formula rather than just letting it flow, rather than just saying, oh, I'd like to have this and relax and allow it to happen. So you said, was that the first time I manifested? What did you ask me that again? Let me
Yeah,
get
was
that.
that the first time your manifestation started of you being able to manifest things?
That was the first time me realizing that I had manifested something, because we're constantly manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
to
ma'am.
both you guys,
So that was my first time with intention, wanting something and realizing that I got it.
mhm.
Now at that age, I'm not realizing you did that, but it was like I wanted it and got it, but I didn't put the connection that I did that together.
So both you Christians first, what did you learn from winning, and conversely, what did you learn from losing, or did you learn anything?
Losing? Where'd you get that from? Who said
Well,
anything
I would
about
say,
losing? Who, you're
well,
a loser.
if that's the first time, if that's the first time you won something.
Who's there?
Well, that was the first time it was something that I specifically wanted and got.
So what did you learn from winning?
It feels damn good.
Are you about to Bobby Boucher, Waterboy, all the rest of the dances from now on? You about to just give me one word? Yes,
Well, my mama
it felt good.
my mama
Not only will I do it, yes, I do it.
I don't the lesson learned, it's like through life, through this whole journey that I've been on, I realized my role in getting things that I want.
Okay. James, same question. What did you learn from winning? And if you've lost, unlike Kristen, what did you learn from losing?
I'll tie my answer into something that Kristen said, which is, Kristen said that she dipped into the formula, right? So things were flowing and moving and able to manifest. But then, there's a point I think that people get to where they say, this is what I want, and then they hold on to it. So rather than allowing it to happen, they hold on to it. And it's like, okay, is it happening now? Is it happening now? Is it happening now? Is it happening now? It's the equivalent of planting a seed so you can grow a tree, but you keep digging up the seed to see how much progress made, right? So there has to be a level of, I'm going to call it emotional independence from the things you choose to manifest in order to allow them to manifest. The seed's going to grow. You just have to trust that it's going to grow. If you keep digging it up and looking at it, you're not trusting. And in the act of digging it up, you actually interrupt its ability to grow. Same thing is true of what you desire to manifest. You have to plant the seed and then allow it to just do what it does. And just know that it's going to happen in its own perfect time.
Mm-hmm.
Anything on the losing?
I don't really consider losing. To be truthful, I don't really consider winning either. And for me, I consider everything that happens in my life as something that's helping me to become what I'm ultimately going to become. So sometimes that takes the form of not getting something I may want, or feeling like maybe I'm taking a couple of steps back. Other times it feels like I'm being showered in gifts, and my life is going in that direction. What I've learned is in both of those situations, not to go overboard with the emotional side, and just understand that there's something there that I'm learning that's going to benefit me towards who I'm ultimately becoming. So whether it's something we call good or call bad, I recognize it as just the next thing to move me along my path.
So the time that I won something, so to give you a bit of backstory, I moved around a lot as a kid. Actually, just all my life, I've moved around a lot. But specifically as a kid, number one, I was born out of the country. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I'm a citizen born abroad. So I was born in Saudi Arabia, but I'm an American citizen. We moved from there, from Panama to United States, and then lived all over New Jersey and California and a bunch of other places. So one of the main reasons that I know so many people is based off the fact that I moved around so much. Like a lot of people that I know are just people that I met in the process of moving. So for my scholastic years, I went to 2 high schools, 2 middle schools, and 4 or 5 elementary schools. I don't know if one counts because I went to one twice. I left and I came back. So I moved around a lot. But one particular time, I was in the 5th grade. I was living in Rahway, New Jersey. For most of my time living in New Jersey, I lived in North Jersey. Uh, Plainfield, Rahway, Scotch Plain, blah, blah, blah. I can go to the gamut of places I lived in North Jersey. At this particular time, I had to move from North Jersey to South Jersey. Family wise, there were some tumultuous things going on internally, family wise. So I had to move all the way to South Jersey. While I was out in South Jersey, didn't like it much because they were more like Philadelphia than they were like New York. And my family's out of Brooklyn, so all my cues and understandings and lingo and things and the way of dress were all New York based. I met a kid. His name was James. I won't say his last name because I haven't spoken to him in years, but he was a cool kid. Like he became my best friend living in Jersey. He was the guy who He introduced me to MTV. He was the guy who introduced me to rock music, wrestling, like skateboarding, BMX bike riding, that whole sort of stuff. But the one thing he also introduced me to was he was on the dive team. So the school that I went to was called Hawthorne. Hawthorne had a pool connected directly to it, which was Willingboro, New Jersey's, like the community pool. It's connected to this school. So they had a diving and swimming team. Mm. And while being there, so prior to this, I did a lot of martial arts. And they make you do tucks and rolls and things of that nature while you're doing martial arts. So you can be able to flip. Like James used to do gymnastics. I don't know if people know that, but James did gymnastics. James could do flips and tucks and all that other stuff. I learned to do that as well, being part of this, being doing martial arts early on. So when I started diving, initially I won 2 firsts and 1 third in my first 3 competitions, just entering. And I've never dove before. I knew how to swim because my father put all of us in swimming lessons at the YMCA. But the reason that was important was because I was in an area I didn't want to be, around people that I didn't know, in an environment and in a situation that may not have been the healthiest, so to speak, because there was just a lot going. There was just a lot going on at the time, in that particular time in my life, a lot. So, and it helped. It made me happy for the brief summer I was there, because I was only there for 1 year. I literally had to move right after that. I was there for 6th grade, then I left at the end of that summer. But I was there for the whole school year, all of the summer. And then when we started the next school year, September, I moved for that back to North Jersey. But it helped me. So the lessons I learned from winning and losing, if we're going to go into that, what I learned early on is that winning helps your self-esteem, losing helps build character. The 2 first places that I got helped with the self-esteem. It actually helped at a really meaningful time. And I never dove after that, never joined any diving team. It was just that one particular moment in time where I was diving in Hawthorne for the pool. And it really helped at a time where I just wasn't feeling the best about, I wasn't feeling the best about the conditions that are within. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate that. Here's the thing though. So prior to us getting on air, I told Kristen a story about someone, my friend Vanessa specifically, because I shouted her out last time, so I'll shout her out again. She told me, you go in on Kristen too much. You make fun of Kristen too much. You need to, really relax. You go in on Kristen. So thus far, I haven't done anything. And even though this is an audio podcast, people can't see what Kristen's doing in the background. I told her earlier that, I'm gonna take it easy. I'm not gonna fire away at you. But now I'm also a person who likes to defend myself. So moving forward, this peace
no one knows what you're talking
truce
about. No one
is now over.
No
Our
one knows.
truce is now over.
I have said nothing disrespectful at all.
Oh, of course you have not. Okay. So James, next question. Tell me a story about the time you fell in love. And it doesn't have to be with a person. It's the time you fell in love.
Aw. Doesn't have to be with a person.
Yes. You can fall in love with a career.
That's
you can
cool.
fall in love
with chocolate.
No, that's a cool question. I love how you asked that. It actually changes my answer. When my son Jordan was born. So when he was still in the womb, I would read to him. I talked to him all the time. I did all of those things, right? I'm a corny guy. I accept that. I'm 100% corny. That's just what I am. I fully embrace that. No worries. I have no upset about that. I'm corny. So I'm reading to him. I'm doing all these things, right? He's born. The nurses take me in the back to go see him. Well, not even in the back. He was in the same room. The nurses were cleaning him up. I walk over and I said, "Hey, Jordan." And he whipped his head around in my direction. And the nurse said, "Wow, somebody knows his dad." And in that moment, it created the most intense, firm, solid bond I've ever felt in my life. In that moment, it happened. And to this day, he's 27 years old, or close. He'll be 27 soon. He'll be 27 in May. That bond still exists. But I'll never forget that moment. That moment when when the baby's just born, they can't see, but he completely recognized my voice, and that created this. And Abdul will tell you, we have such a strong bond, and it was formed in that moment. So in that moment, my son and I, that the deep love that we have for each other was formed.
Jordan's a great kid. I can't even call him a kid. He's a great man. He's a really good. Jordan's he's one of the types of people, and this has a lot to do with James, that you don't mind introducing to anybody because everybody's gonna like him. He's really respectful, really kind, just really smart. And when you get around him, you just feel like you know him for all your life. Kristen, question.
I just want to say, I want to say publicly that the power of dad is like immeasurable. The fact that you were reading to him, the fact that you were present, the fact that you were their fathers, it's I can't even express how important, how valuable, how impacting fathers are, how much fathers affect everybody. Fathers affect the daughters, fathers affect the sons, and fathers affect the partners. And it's just like no pressure, but you guys have all the pressure because the absence of dad, it's so evident, and that is on both, like I said, daughters, sons, and the partner. So I mean, it's just everything. So he's probably a wonderful guy. Not to take anything away from mom, but that presence of dad is everything.
I think specifically in the African American community, where it's fathers, and I'm not saying all, not a all, it's just a some, but there's a prevalence in current times of the sentiment that fathers aren't necessary, or at least they're a second thought, or at least they are really not acknowledged as much. They do it in other communities too, but I'm specifically speaking about our community. So to hear you say that is nice to hear that.
I don't even think we realize it though, the importance and the value. I don't think men realize the difference that they make. I really don't think men realize.
To your point on that, my daughter, right? My daughter's going to be 12 this year, and my wife tells me all the time. She's like, "Understand how important your role is, because the men she chooses to be around as she gets older are going to be based on the relationship she has with you."
Mm-hmm.
And to what you said earlier, Kristen, is really important. There's pressure there, right? There's that pressure to be the man that you hope she ends up with one day.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's a little different. The pressure of a father on his son is, at least for me, the pressure I had raising my boys was get them independent and able to make really good decisions, and get them to a place where they can really care for and wrap their arms around a number of people and bring them along with them. With my daughter, the pressure is different. It's not with my sons, the pressure, I put pressure on them. With my daughter, I'm putting the pressure on me. Be the person that she wants in her life when she's older.
And the effects on each are different, but equally as powerful.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. And that's not to say anyone else, it's not to say anyone else should take what I just said as a formula for themselves. It's how I see it. And, I know different people have different opinions about what a father and a mother is. And, I'm in a heterosexual relationship. It may be different in other relationships, but that's my experience. That's what I do.
So let me ask you both this, James specifically, because you're both coming from the opposite sides of this formula. But you said you read to your child while he was in the womb. Mm-hmm. Now with the emergence of all sorts of music, which people, I don't want to say negative or positive, but some are violent, some are very overly sexual. Do you think a pregnant person should be listening to that stuff, or do you think it holds no merit whatsoever? Or do you think what are your thoughts on it? Just because I was thinking about that just now.
Yeah, so and Ab, you can co-sign on everything I'm about to say. My nickname for my son, Jordan, is Biggie. And it's been Biggie since the day he was born. Like I'm a big Notorious B.I.G. fan, always have been. And so the way I would say it is, it's not necessarily the music, it's what you make the music mean, right? So for Jordan, my son, the reason why I called him Biggie was because of his creativity, his ability to control a conversation, control the room. Just there's an authority that he walks with, that he doesn't use his authority to bash you over the head. He uses his authority to bring you along, right? Just like you said, Abdul, you can put him in front of anybody. He can carry that conversation with them. And when you leave, you're like, wow, that was a really great conversation. That's how he carries his authority. I see Notorious B.I.G. in a very similar way. He's got a story to tell. And when he tells it, or when he used to tell it, you had to listen. You had to listen to that voice. And it wasn't his voice, it was what was behind the voice. My son Jordan has that ability. So I've always called him Biggie. So I think for some parents, if they believe classical music is going to inspire their child to be more intellectual, be more analytical, and they can provide that meaning to their child, then that will be so. But if you're a hip hop head and that's what you're allowing your children to listen to when they're in the womb, but can help them see where their power is within that music, within that genre, then that's what they'll walk away with as well. So I don't think it's the music per se. I think it's the meaning you apply to it.
'Cause I've heard several doctors and several educators say, "Oh, you should let." Well, I'm getting to you, Christian. You're there. Just hold on. I'm leading into the question. So I heard several doctors say you should let your kids listen to when a woman's pregnant, she should listen to classical music. She should listen to jazz music. She should hone her entertainment or entertainment diet around specific things, the same way you would control your food diet. So, Kristen, while you were pregnant, were you cautious or were you cognizant of making sure that you read certain things, listened to certain things, and did not listen to other things, or it did not matter to you?
Everything mattered, but I think most importantly for a woman with a child in your womb, it is priceless to focus on how you feel. So this kind of supports some of what he was saying about the meaning that you put behind it. If I'm listening to a ratchet song, but it's making me feel so good and I'm laughing or I'm enjoying it or something like that, the baby's not quite necessarily going to take in the lyrics, but the baby's going to take in mommy feels good right now. Mommy's dancing, mommy's happy. And I think that makes a huge difference. What goes on with the mother definitely spills into baby. So you have to maintain like peace of mind, peace of calm, and joy and happy. You have to make yourself stay in that space, because everything that a woman thinks and feels directly affects that baby. And I'm so lucky that my son is the man that he is today, because he caught a lot of stress, me and his dad having some conflicts, blah, 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 that whole thing. I went through a lot of emotional turmoil, and I apologize to my son a lot behind that, because I'm like, you don't realize it now, but you were directly affected by how I felt while you were in my womb.
So with that being said, tell me a story about the time you fell in love with something.
Whole different person now. My son is number one, and I loved hearing you tell that about your son and how he responded to you. Now, I didn't know though that babies can't see immediately, because when my son came out and they laid him on my chest, he looked at me and his father like, I hope you two mofos got you together. He literally looked at me and then looked at him like, I hope y'all got it together. And his look was so definitive that we looked at each other like, damn.
Yeah, he was like, these niggas.
But the first one that I fell in love with, I was a senior in high school. It was Christopher. He and I are friends today, but he was the cat's meow. I didn't think he was the one, but I adored Christopher. And then he broke my heart and cheated on me.
Do you know the person he cheated on with? Were you friends with that person?
You mean them?
Oh, them. He was out in the streets.
He cheated like that. Yes. And what's crazy is I was in college doing this, yeah, but she got a man. Like, I was interested in a couple guys, but nothing went down. And a couple guys were like, who's she? What's up? Back in my hot days. Hot meaning cute days.
Way back. Wait.
Shut up. So, but yeah, like they were like, oh yeah, but she got a man. Like that's literally what they called me. Yeah, but she got a man. And yeah, he was out there, he was doing it. And it's so funny. Life always gives you that full circle moment because sorry, Christopher, I have to share this. He got into a relationship, later years later as an adult and got his heart broken. And he said to me, whatever I did to you, trust me, I got it back. And I'm sitting there like, damn, now I feel bad for you. But
How did you
yeah.
find out that he cheated?
There were a couple of little clues and I put them together and was like, what is this? What is this? And what is this? And I just like blacked out. I was like,
Were they with people that you went to school with? Any of them?
no, but there were some that had crossed our paths and some that he had introduced me to as a friend of,
Mhm.
because if a man tells me someone's his friend, I'll take, remember before I mentioned, your word is you start at the level of truth for me until there's a crack. Once there's a crack, now you're at the level of lie. Anything that you say in the beginning, I'm going to take your word for it until it's proven otherwise. And once I find out that you've lied, now everything that you say is a lie until it's proven true. So yeah, some of the people I knew of, yeah, he did me real dirty. He did me real dirty. And
Okay.
we're cool today. We laughed so hard today. We're cool today. So there's that.
Okay. Well, I'll go with a similar story. So a chain of events happened in my early 20s. I was working at a television station, like I previously mentioned. I was a talent booker. I was on the verge of getting a promotion. Prior to that, so that was on December 5th. I was supposed to get my promotion because that's the year they do it on the day you were hired. You get your promotion on that day. So that was December 5th. Prior to that, a couple of months, 9/11 happened. So that was in 2001. So 9/11 happened. The TV was going through some changes internally. Our show got canceled on December 5th, the day I was supposed to get my promotion. I got laid off. Right after that, a couple months later, my mother dies. Right after that, a couple months later, my brother goes to prison, like back to back to back to back. In the midst of that, here's the good part of that. In the midst of that, I had the time to write my screenplay. And that was around the time I wrote my first screenplay, which then got me the deal moving later on, or, the deal, tentative deal. Around that same time, I met a young lady through a friend of mine that actually everybody in this room knows. My friend Tootie. I'll say her name because that's the homie, my friend Tootie. Introduced me to a young lady. I Prior to that, I was never the relationship guy at all. This wasn't I was moving and shaking. I cared more about my career and having fun and moving around more than I did getting into a relationship. And then I met her, and I like instantly with one of them things, it just clicked. We happened to have the same exact birthday, which was how our conversation first started, and then it turned into a bunch of other stuff. We were friends first, and then got into a relationship, and it lasted uh, several years until it ended, which is like the first time I fell in love, the first heartbreak. It was learn a lot from it about yourself in the process. I didn't know that you could feel that much pain after the heartbreak, like it hurt, like almost like a physical pain hurt. But conversely, I didn't know that something not connected to family, so to speak, could give you that much joy. Like you love somebody so much that you put them before you put yourself in most instances. Where when you think about stuff, you think, oh, the other person would like this, even though it had nothing to do with you. Or like, oh, the other person would, want to, this would be good for them. And maybe they might like it. It's like you're putting them before you. Or how do I work, how do I make this thing work where I can do this special thing for this person? So that was my first time experiencing all of that wrapped up in this one relationship. And that was the highs were highs and the lows were lows. But overall, it was really, really, I got more out of it than I lost.
Aw.
Shut up. Uh,
Looking Panub and all.
All right. So I'm going to go Kristen with this one first. Kristen, tell me a story about the time you got into a fist fight.
Slappy said one wrong thing, and I was like, you know what? I'm about sick of
Yeah.
you.
And I thought you were going to talk about the time the dude cheated on you. You had to go roll up on one of them bitches and
Oh, no, that's
put hands and feet on somebody.
No, you'll never hear that story from me. I am not rolling up on anybody over no dude. That's not gonna happen. Not even stalking a dude. Not doing that. Not me. Fist fight. Okay, so now in grade school, I fought regularly. All guys, because they would grab my butt. I was buffalo butt, big butt, blah, blah, blah. They would grab my butt. They felt it was okay to grab my butt. Today it would be a lawsuit. So I would always fight them. So I don't know if grade school fights necessarily count. However, fast forward to college, I had my first real fight with a friend. I'm not going to say her name because she don't deserve to have her name said.
She's still a friend?
Not at all. Come on.
She's a former friend. Okay.
In college, she was my friend at this time. And just to give a very brief backstory, because she came in the room to ask to borrow something. And I told her no, and then she just blacked out on me. It felt and seemed to me like she just blacked out. I was like, where's this coming from? I don't even understand. What? Like, I just told you no. Like, why are you saying all this? She starts pulling things out of the hat, accusing me of X, Y, and Z. And one of the things that she said that stuck out was she was like, when we had that ish going down with them DC girls, you didn't even have my back. A little backstory on that. A few weeks prior, one of the guys from DC took her meal card. She said, be in here for dinner. And she was dating a Q at the time. So she mentioned it to her boyfriend, and somehow Q's came out of the woodwork, came to dinner and located this guy and stomped him. So while we're standing there watching this whole backlash of him taking her meal card at lunch, some DC chicks were like, they go to bitches responsible for that. And I'm sitting here like, I wasn't even in there at lunch. Like now I'm in this. So for the next few weeks, we walked around campus kind of quiet and low key and on guard and everything. Cause I was like, oh, them DC bitches at North Carolina Central were like ready. And I was not. Somehow with life though, my outer shell always appeared ready, but my inside was mush. I was scared for life. Okay. So she's saying, fast forward again to back to our moment in my dormitory room. You came in my room and asked me for something. I said no nicely. It wasn't like no. It was just like, no, I'm getting ready to do something. And she's going off. She's saying all this. You didn't even have my back when the DC ish went down, and you this and you that. And I was like, where's all this coming from? I don't even understand it. And I said, you really want to physically fight me? And she was like, yes. And she was sounding like this too. So I was like, well, I'm not really sure why and where it's coming from, but you're not getting blood. So I can promise you that you're not going to get blood. So now I'm like one of those characters in a game where I feel my energy starting to resurge and build up. And I guess you could say I was slowly starting to glow. Pikachu getting the power, because I was like, you're not getting blood. I don't know what you want. We can set this timer. If you want to go for like 5 minutes, we can do that. I don't even understand this. And I was like, are you really serious? Like, you really want to fight me? Finally, I turned to the other friend who lived on the dorm hallway. She was in the room trying to understand what was going on. I said, lock the door. Now, just an FYI, if somebody tells somebody else to lock the door and they're ready to fight you, you might really not want to be in there at that moment. Because once I told the other girl lock the door, we commenced the fight, and I commenced the whooping that A. So I whooped the A. The other girl opened the door and ran. I was like, oh my God, they're really fighting. So at the end, I literally grabbed her and tossed her out the room. So that was the end of that. And the lesson from that one was be loud or be wrong, but never be both. Because she was really going in on me. People down the hallway started to hear her saying all this stuff about me in my room. They started, so after that fight, she went to the library and found the rest of our group of friends. And they were like, damn, what happened to you? You should ask your roommate. So somebody else told somebody, like, oh, I just saw her being tossed out of the room. So everybody saw bits and pieces and heard bits and pieces, but nobody understood why. So our mutual friends was just like, what happened? I don't understand. I was like, oh, she came in here and she just didn't accept my no and went off on me. It's really funny too, because like the next day I go to the student union and in between classes and I see all of our friends and she's there and I'll change the name for the sake of the story and call her Kelly. But I was like, hey, y'all, hey, so-and-so. And I leaned over and said, hey, Kelly. And brought me personal joy and power, because now that I know that you can't fight, now I'm going to taunt you. You should never have let me know that you cannot fight. And the thing is, this particular friend, we used to always, the running joke was, man, I'm glad I'm on your side because you're crazy, you're evil, you're mean. You might, her motto was punks jump up to get, what was it? Punks jump up to get beat down.
Beat down.
That was her motto. And we would all be
nothing
like,
but abuse.
Every little thing somebody else did, she'd be like, shit, we could just da 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 da. We'd be like, man, I'm glad I'm your friend, because geez. But after I discovered you talk all that shit and you cannot fight, it's a wrap.
So she got a food card taken, which is weird. Why would someone take somebody's food card?
I don't know. It was a guy. It was a guy that did that too, and I'm not really clear why he did that.
And then she gets jumped by a bunch of girls.
She did not get jumped. No,
she didn't get jumped. Did the fight happen?
Nobody. The guy who did it got jumped by the accused.
Yeah, but you also said that she came to you and said you didn't help me.
The DC girls were like, there go them bitches, that they're the reason. So we had to walk around on campus on guard, but nothing ever happened. Nothing ever happened that I'm aware of to me or to her at any time. And there was a moment too where I was coming to get on the elevator in my dorm. I was by myself and the doors were about to close and I jump in and I realized this is all DC bitches. My ass is going. The doors closed and I was like, oh my God, it's a wrap. But nobody, it was the quietest, scariest. You talk about the name of time. I didn't overcome that fear. Your question earlier was name a time you overcame a fear. Mm-hmm. I didn't overcome that fear, but I was deep in fear. They didn't say anything or do anything to me, though, and I was glad. But no, there was never a moment where they even had an encounter where they said something to her and I was just like, punk, be on the side or anything like that. Nothing that I was aware of. Maybe I missed something. This is my version. I don't know her version. I don't care either. But
how did you know your hand skills was so nice that you could be like, on some Bronx Tale shit, lock the door?
I didn't. I just knew I was tired of her. I really didn't know. I didn't know she couldn't fight.
But you told her we could put this on a timer. Like, that's some gangster shit to tell somebody, we can put this on a timer and then go a couple rounds.
It is a little gangster. But I mean, I guess when you get pushed to your limits, you meet a side of yourself you didn't know. But I was sick of her and I needed this to stop, not to linger on, not let her walk out and have this ongoing thing over me. No, we're about to shut this down now. If a fight is what you want, the fight is what you're going to get. Yes, like we can put a timer on it. I'll give you 5 minutes. And that's a long time to fight somebody. But it's like, I'll give you 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes. Lock the door. I commenced it. I'm like, she can't even fight. All that shit she's talking.
Did you ragdoll her? Did she get any hits off? Or did you break skin? Was there blood? Did you like lump her up that bad? Was there any bruises?
There wasn't blood. I think it was just light bruising or something like that. But and I really honestly wasn't even going in, which is why I was just like, what is she doing? And I like even had her in a headlock and she's like, let me go, let me go. I had her in a backwards headlock. And she's like, let me go, let me go. And then right there, it's like, if you have to ask me to let you go, you lost.
Yeah.
What do you do? No. So there's that.
James, same question. Tell me a story about the time you got into a fist fight.
If it's okay, I'll tell you 3 and I'll keep them all short.
Okay.
But I learned something. I have many more than 3, but these 3 in particular really helped me. So the first one was in grade school. And you got to understand, I've always been a geek, right? I've always been the guy who knew education was going to get me out of my circumstances. So I focused on speaking properly amongst a whole group of people who was in style to speak slang and do all this other stuff. I was knowingly putting a target on my back. I knew that was going to get me looked at a different way. And that's what it was. this first fight. I think it was fourth or fifth grade. I forget. It was, and I don't even remember what we were fighting about, but it was one of those meet me in the back of the school at 3 o'clock type things, right? And and they were like, "Are you really gonna?" The guy said that to me, and I'm not gonna say his name. And they were like, people were like, "Are you gonna go? Are you gonna go?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm definitely gonna go." Right? I had no idea how to fight. Right? I had no fight training at this point. Nothing. There was no reason why I should have been there. But I said I was gonna go, and I honor my word, so I went. So. Um, I didn't know how good of a fighter he was or that I was going to be. What I knew was I was not going to stop. That's what I knew. I'm not going to be the one to walk away. Right? I'm not going to be the one that gets on the ground and stays on the ground. Whatever happens, I'm going to keep going. That was the only thing I had going for me was I'm going to keep going. Fight happens, and it's what you would expect from two, fourth, fifth graders fighting, right? No big deal. No skills here. Just a bunch of swinging, wrestling, and throwing on the ground and rolling around. But there was this moment where we both stood up. We're just rolling around the ground. We both stood up, and we both got landed some punches. And I'm waiting for the next wave. And he starts backing up, turns around, and walks off the playground. And I went, yo, like I didn't expect that, right? And what it taught me was, and that carried me for years. What it taught me was just walking into it, knowing that I'm not going to stop. There's some value there, right? I may not be a skilled fighter. I may not have, at that point, I had no ability except the decision that no matter what happens, I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to be the one to end this. He's going to either I'm going to somehow knock him out, which didn't happen, or he's just going to get so tired of me just coming at him. He's just going to stop himself. And that's what happened. So I went a whole bunch of fights after that. I just decided I'm not going to. And we talked before in a couple of episodes ago about our family's adrenaline, right? So adrenaline's a big deal for me because it stops me from feeling pain in the moment. I get all of it later. But in the moment, I don't feel anything. I'm just going to keep going, knowing that I'm not going to feel anything. And that carried me for years, right? I'll call it the second consequential fight, the second fight that really taught me something significant. So now I'm a martial artist. I've been doing Shaolin Kung Fu. I think it might have been for 12 years at this point. This is the first real fight I'm going to have after training all these years, right? And I didn't expect to have this fight. I'm in my suit. I'm in Jersey City. I'm in my suit. I'm walking down the street, and these two guys are looking through a fence at this construction site. And I see the two of them. They look over, they see me coming. One of them says something to the other, and then one of them starts walking, and the other one stays there, right? And I'm looking at this, and I'm going, are they, like, in my head, I over intellectualize it. I'm like, are they really about to do this, right? So it's called the squeeze, right? So one of them stays put, and I'll tell you what I did. I walked past him, then he comes behind me, walking behind me. The other one's in front of me, right? And the plan is he'll turn, and then they got me on either side, right? That's what they were going to try to do. Well, when I saw the other guy go, and I saw the guy that I walked past kind of go behind me, I slowed down my walk all the way. Like when I say all the way, I was barely moving. I was walking so slow, right? So the guy in front, he's walking way ahead, thinking I'm following the same pace, right? So he turns around to run at me and realizes I'm nowhere near him. So I turned around to the guy that's behind me, right? He's holding a knife, right? Without thinking, I punched him in his face. Didn't realize I knocked him out. I was going to slip back a little bit and then kick the knife out of his hand, but he was already knocked out. So he falls down and he's dropping the knife. I turned around to get the other guy, and he did the Scooby-Doo thing. He was running. He was like, and he turned around and ran around the corner. What I learned from that experience was two things. Number one, thank God for the skill set. Now I had a skill set, right? And it was tangible and it was subconscious. It wasn't something I had to think about. It was just there. But the other thing I learned is after the fact, when everything is said and done, right? It's all done. I'm safe now. Everything's fine. I went a little bit crazy. I couldn't get my thoughts together. I was all over the place. Like, people kept asking me what happened, and I couldn't put it all together. Like, it was weird. So when people talk about going through a traumatic experience and people are like, what happened? And they can't put it all together in that moment, I understand what that feels like. Because in that moment, I was like, I couldn't find it all. It was like, wow. So God knows what I've said, he'll not recounting that story. But once I got probably months later, I got really calm and clear on what happened. Then I was able to tell the story I just told here. So it took some time, but it taught me that when people like maybe, and it may be true for me that before that happened, when someone went through something and they said, I don't remember, I was like, that's got to be bullshit, right? How can you not remember this very consequential thing you just went through? I understand now, right? When you go through something like those guys conspired to attack me. And I think more than the event itself, just that fact that someone tried to make me a victim just sent me to a completely different place. So that's number two. It taught me a couple of things, but most importantly, I had a skill set now I could trust. But number two, you can go through something really significant and jumble it up in your mind. That's absolutely possible. Third story. There was no punches thrown in the story, but it was absolutely the scariest thing I ever went through. Jersey City, once again, Jersey City, New Jersey. Late at night, in the path. There's a train called the Path Train for those who don't live in New York and New Jersey. It's basically a subway, right? I'm going down the steps, and there's this guy at the bottom of the steps. He's got these scars on his face. He's looking up at the steps. He says something to someone that I can't see, and then he walks away. I go, okay, that was odd, right? And this was probably maybe 2 years after the prior story. I go down the steps, I go around the corner trying to figure out what's happening, and it's two guys, the guy with the scars and some other guy. In my mind, they clearly knew each other, but they were acting like they didn't. They were kind of both like looking at different directions. I'm like, okay, that's odd. So out of habit, I stand in my normal place for the path train. I always leaned up against the same post, and because the train would pull up, the doors would open, and I would just walk in. There's no train there yet, right? So I lean up against this post, got my book bag on my back with my laptop, and these two guys are somewhere behind me. I'm not thinking about them, right? And then I hear a noise. I look to my left, and one of the guy with the scars, he's kind of trying to sneak up on me from the left. And when I look at him, he kind of does one of these things like he's looking away. And I'm like, okay. And then I hear the other guy behind me, right? I turn around. You think of a square post, right, that goes from the platform to the ceiling. I turn around so that my back is against the post. I'm now facing the other train and these two guys, right? That's what I'm facing. And it's just the three of us in this station. And I take my bag off, I slam it down, and I'm ready to fight. Like, I'm there. I'm like, okay, let's do this. In my mind, whichever one attacked me first, I was going to kill him and use his body to hit the other one and then run up the stairs. That was my exit plan. And I'm not pulling any punches. That's exactly what my plan was. They must have felt that because they looked at each other, they looked at me, they stayed where they were, and they started pacing back and forth like this. They start pacing back and forth, and they'd be walking, they'd look over at me like this and keep pacing to see if I dropped my guard. And they did that for 10 minutes, the longest 10 minutes of my life, because I also had the feeling that one of them had a weapon, right? So I'm waiting for a knife or something to come out. I'm waiting for both of them to get to me. I'd already committed to this plan. You're either going into the tracks, or I'm going to break your neck and use you as a weapon against the other one. They just kept going. Then 10 minutes later, you hear the train horn, burp, it goes. They look at each other really quick, look at me, and I'm just standing there like I'm ready, like I'm still ready. Train pulls up behind me. The door is exactly where it should be, right? I pick up my bag, I sidestep to the right, back into the train because I know where the door is going to be, and then I block the door so they can't get in. The door closes, the train pulls off, and they start pointing at me, talking to each other. And then the real dread hit me. Oh my God, the next person that comes down those stairs is going to get attacked. And that messed with me for the next 6 months.
Damn.
So for 6 months, you, Kristen.
Yeah, for 6 months, I'm going. Did someone come down the stairs? Did someone attack them? Like what? And my Kung Fu instructor, his name is Larry, he's an incredible martial artist and philosopher. He said to me, he finally stopped me. He's like, you're in this thought loop. And he finally stopped me and said, listen, he said, did you survive the situation? I said, yes. He said, then you made the right decision. He's like, you can't think about what's going to happen next. You can't think about what happened before. All you can think about is the situation you're in and what you're going to do about it. He said, you executed that situation perfectly. You should not have changed a thing. But if you sense that one of them had a weapon, they probably did. And what if you engaged them? Now you're the attacker, right? So now you're on the other side of the law in that situation as well. So that situation just taught me, again, I use my skills. The highest level of martial arts is when no punches, no kicks are thrown. It's when you can get out of a situation by doing nothing at all, right? So I got out of that situation. But again, rather than, I didn't have the same situation I had a couple years before where I just lost myself in the emotion afterwards, because I'm remarkably clear in tragic, when the situation's happening, you want me in charge because I am completely clear. I make clear decisions. Everything's good. It's afterwards that I fall apart, right? In this situation, I didn't fall apart. I did. I fell apart because of the philosophical quandary I was in. Did I do the right thing? Should I have done something different to protect the next person that came down the stairs? And what I ended up settling with is, everything in life happens as it should. And I did get out of the situation. I think today you could probably use your cell phone in the pass station. Back then you couldn't. I don't know. I'm out of New York and New Jersey, but I would not have done anything differently. And I can say that with confidence today.
You ain't locked the door like Kristen, though. I mean, come on. You ain't.
And set a timer.
Wait, you didn't tell them they got 5 minutes, though.
That's right.
Okay, so, and then I'll tell my story after that. So both of you guys, in this situation, you were not the aggressor. You were the one being attacked, or at least being threatened. Was there ever a time where you were the aggressor?
No.
Once. And you can debate whether I was really the aggressor. I was at the Plainfield YMCA, Plainfield, New Jersey. These 5 guys came. Well, there's one guy came down the stairs. He wanted to get in for free. I wouldn't let him in for free. He said, "I'll wait for you when you're off work." Right now, I got threatened a lot. That's just being a geek in Plainfield, New Jersey. You're just gonna get threatened a lot because no one thinks you can fight. And legitimately, I didn't have any skills at that time. But he was like, "I'm gonna wait for you until you get off work." I was like, "Okay, that's a threat I heard pretty often. I'd usually leave. There's no one waiting for me, and I go home." This day, he was there with his friends. He was legitimately there. He said, "I told you I was gonna wait for you." And I said something to him that I think, Abdul, either you said it to me before then or you said it later. And I was like, "I can't believe you said that," which is, you guys may get me, but I'm going to get you.
I'm going to get you.
So look, there's 5 of you. You may get me. You may get me down, but you, the one who started all this, I'm going to get you. I said that to him. And he started going on and on about all the things he was going to do to me. And I just hit him. I just hit him. And I hit him hard enough that he got wobbly. His friends caught him, picked him up, and they left with him. So you can debate whether I was the aggressor in that. I did throw the first punch, but I didn't ask for that situation. But to this day, I use that look, it may be more of you. You may have weapons. You may have whatever you want. But whoever started it, you're coming with me. If I'm going to the hospital, you're going to be right next to me. You coming too.
So I thought you were going to tell another story, because it goes with the philosophy that our father used to always tell us because like I said, I moved around a lot. He said, if you have to get in a fight, how is it going? Make it bloody, make it
bloody,
public,
make it public.
Public.
And when everyone tells you, when everyone comes to you and asks you what happened, just say, and they have their own version of the story, just say, "It didn't quite happen that way," and let the rumors go. You're talking about my college story.
Yeah, college story. But the philosophy was,
that?
make it public, and make it bloody.
Make it bloody.
Yeah. But tell that one, because I got then so much.
All right, I'll do this quick. In college, this guy just hated my guts from day one. Just did, right? And he started dating a friend of mine. So I'm trying to remember. No, I'm not gonna tell the full story, because then it will people will know I'm talking about them. There's some lead up to the story, but anyway, I'm leaving my female friend's room. Right, whenever were we engaged in anything, we're always just friends. But this guy who hates my guts is dating her, and he confronts me in the hallway talking about how I can't be friends with her anymore. And I was like, "Nah, that's my friend. whatever." And in the middle of talking, he punched me hard. Like, he he hit me hard. Like it was legit. I give him that. If he's listening, you rocked me on that one. That was a good one, right? You rocked me on that one. So at this point, I wasn't in Kung Fu, but I had, from being at the Plainfield YMCA, I started picking up bits and pieces of skills watching other martial artists and boxers. So I could throw a pretty good punch. I could throw a pretty good kick. That was about it. I kicked this guy in the stomach. When he leaned over like this, I grabbed the back of his head and smashed him into the wall, right in the hallway wall, right? And that was pretty good. The wall hit him harder than I would have. And then, it was a mess, right? There was blood. There were, people started coming out of their rooms. It was a whole thing. Now I'm in college on scholarship, right? Academic scholarship. So I'm afraid I'm going to lose my scholarship at this point, right? And I go to my room, I'm sitting on the edge of the bed and I'm freaking out. Like internally, I'm like, I can't lose the scholarship. This is my way out of, everything I've seen in life. And I want to get to a place that's better, and education is going to be the way. I'm freaking out. And then the resident assistants show up because they have to write their report. What I didn't know was one of the resident assistants saw the entire thing. She saw me get punched first. So it became self-defense. He ended up getting suspended and I was fine. So now it was public enough, right? People saw it. It was definitely bloody, right? It was bloody. His face was messed up. And then to your point, Abdul, when people came to me and was like, James, what happened? I heard you did some, roundhouse kick and you did da, and I heard you did this suicide punch and all these other things. All I said was, it didn't quite happen that way. Oh, yes, it did. Oh, my God. And the rumors around campus just went crazy, right? And this was my freshman year. Fast forward to my senior year, I'm playing basketball. And I was only 5'9". There were some really large people. And I'm toasting this guy. This kid run the court, and he's like 6'4". And, I'm beating him left and right. He didn't expect me to be as fast as I was or that I could block his shot, right? He wants to fight at the end of the game, right? He's ready to fight. He told me when the game's over, man, I'm coming for you, and right? So the game's over. I'm standing there. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna fight. He's walking toward me. Another kid runs up to him, whispers in his ear, right? As he approaches me, he goes, "Yo, man, my bad. Good game, good game, good game." So to your point, Abdul, sometimes the rumor, and this is my dad's point, make it bloody, make it public, let the rumors run. The rumor saved me on that one, because whatever that kid told him was, I'm sure, was not true, but it was enough to dissuade him from coming at me. So there you go.
And mind you, our father told us that before the book 48 Laws of Power came out, because one of the laws in the 48 Laws of Power is about letting the rumor work in your benefit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That was the advice Dad gave me. I said to Dad, I'm the first one in the family going to college. What advice do you have for me? That was the advice he gave to me. He said, you're gonna fight. He knew. He was like, you're going to fight. You're gonna have a fight. You just are. Just know that. Make it bloody. Make it public. And when everyone asks you what happened, just tell them it didn't quite happen that way.
So my story, I'll do one of yours because it has to do with one person particularly. In a span of years, we have a cousin.
Yeah. Yeah.
My cousin is around my older brother and our age. My older brother's a year. We're around the same age. So we were always hanging out because he's our uncle's oldest son. It was always the three of us, myself, my older brother, and my cousin. But sometimes it would just be myself and my cousin. The thing about my cousin is that he talked a lot of shit, way more than I did, like a lot. But he had heart and he would always back it up. Never punked out, never backed out from a fight. And he was hysterically funny. Like he could snap on you and make fun of you. It might be a family trait because that's I do it. My older brother does it. My younger brother does. We just snap and make fun of people. But anyway, so 3 fights, and the worst one of the 3 fights, I'll save for last. The first fight, he and I didn't get into a fight. Him and I have never swung on each other, never really got into an argument. I was younger. I was playing Pop Warner football. He was spending the night that one time, or not one time, but he was spending the night. he had to go. I had to go to a practice. He happens to have an eye that's sort of sleepy. The guys who I was playing football with on their team started making fun of him, and he lit them all up. I'm talking one at a time. It was like murderer's row. He was just shooting them down, making fun of them. It was the funniest thing ever. And I, knowing me, if you know me, I'm gonna laugh. And I couldn't stop laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. I'm talking, I'm dying laughing. He's making fun of them so bad. You and your mother this, and I'm talking going hard body. And I'm on their football team with my cousin on the sideline, like he's lighting them up, right? So let me circle back a bit. I have an older brother, the brother I mentioned. My brother has always been around 50 pounds heavier than I am, and about maybe 4 or 5 inches taller than I am.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
All our lives, that's been the case. Also, me and my brother fought like animals. We fought like two people who you would think never knew each other. Like if you saw us fighting, you would think we are two distant strangers who've never met and just happened to get into a fight. That's how bad. No one pulled a punch. We used every technique that we knew. Mind you, the other part about it was both of us, because of our father, put us into combat training. For me, it was the first grade. For him, it was the second grade. So I might have been 6. He might have been 7. So all
to be
lives,
clear, I'm not the older brother that he's talking about. I'm the oldest. This is a brother younger than me, but older than Abdul.
Yes, my mother's oldest son.
Yes.
So my knowledge of fighting is training in this thing and fighting my older brother, who not only was he significantly bigger than me, on average, he's significantly bigger than most people, unless you play in the NFL or the NBA. He's probably bigger than you and probably stronger than you. He's a big, strong, agile, coordinated, trained fighting person.
And he's one of those guys that when he fights like a smaller person. He's that agile and flexible.
Quick. Yeah. So that was my sparring partner all my life. Going back to this football practice, my cousin then leaves the next day, and I have to go back to practice on my own. I'm there. We're going through stuff. This is Pop Warner football, mind you. We're going through the running stuff. The coaches are there. Every once in a while, I get brushed in the shoulder, popped in the shoulder by one of the guys, like they'll rub me in the shoulder and hit me or something like that. Or I heard them talking and pointing at me at one point. So I'm like, I didn't think anything of it because it's football. You hit each other in football. So it wasn't a thing. But, when you walk by somebody and brush them with your shoulder, they were doing that sort of stuff to me. The coaches leave. I have to wait for my mother to come pick me up. There was another kid that they brought to the field to fight me. I did not know this. He comes, he starts talking crazy to me. So your boy ain't there now. You think you funny? What you got to say now? If you know me, you know I'm gonna say something. I started lighting him up. I just made fun of Eric. You look like a bop and your mother this, and he swings at me. I whooped his ass. Then the whole football team jumps me. I got jumped by the whole football team. I'm whooping on this guy, like beating him. All of a sudden, I get kicked in the back of the head with a cleat. I fall down. They surround me, and the kicks and punches just start going. Literally, football team that I was part of jumps me because of my cousin making fun of them the day before. And I'm talking, I got hit with a helmet. It was just a wild scene. I was fighting as much as I could, fought a couple of them, but I'm not gonna say that I got out of that unscathed because there were. I'm saying the whole football team, all of them, and me, right? So that's the first fight I get into because of this cousin.
Did you stay on the team afterwards?
Yes.
And did they treat you differently afterwards?
They knew I would fight. And then that ended a lot of other stuff. So it just had nothing to do with the fight. It had nothing to do with the fight. But one of the kids was there. I was at the pool. the YMCA at one point. Different YMCA, not the one that James went to. Man, a lot of stuff happens down at the Y. But anyway, I was in the pool. The guy was talking crap to me. I wasn't paying attention. He snuck me, and I fell into the pool. I get out the pool to go fight him. All the hate when this happens, and anybody who knows, anybody's around, they know if you're in a fight with somebody, never grab the guy who's trying to defend himself's arm. They were grabbing my arm, they were holding me back. So, because my automatic position is, if you grab me, you're with them. So whatever they get, you get.
That's right.
So now I'm trying to fight the lifeguards who are stopping me from getting to the person who hit me. Like magic, my father walks into the Y. He asks me what happens. I tell him what happened. He looks at the other guards who at this point have let me go, but they won't let me leave to go to the locker room. Father goes, okay, well, I got him. I'll take him with me. Like really calm. Takes me to the locker room. He goes, where is he? Because he was going to let me fight that kid in the locker room.
Oh, Dad.
Yeah. So the kid left at that point. About a week or two later, I'm riding my bike down. This is in Rahway, New Jersey. So if you know Rahway Park, it has a lake by the lake. Mm-hmm. I'm riding my bike by the lake, and I see the kid at a distance. I start pedaling really, really fast. I jump off my bike, and I punch him, and he falls into the lake. Lucky enough, because he was with another person. He was actually like two people. And I punch him, and he falls into the lake. Luckily enough, when I jumped off my bike stood upright and just kept rolling forward. So I run to my bike, jump on top, and pedal off before the other two guys could get to me. It was like something out of a stunt movie.
In the movie?
Yes, it was.
You did a drive-by.
I did a drive-by on a bike. I'm literally pedaling my behind up because if you're going towards the lake, it's a downhill slope. So I'm pedaling, and I just jump off and run and catch him. I caught him good too, and he falls right into the water. And then the two guys, it takes a couple seconds to just figure out what's going on. I just start running. My bike is still upright. I just jump back on it to pedal off. It was the coolest thing ever. And that kid never got me back. So, but that was a subsequent story. I got one of them back. But because I got one of them back, they just knew. And that nothing happened after that. But anyway, so that same cousin. So mind you, my cousin, same thing, talks a lot of trash. I went to go spend the night at his place one time. And he must have been talking trash or had prior engagements. Well, I knew he had prior incidents or some sort of outstanding beef with these two guys. I didn't know at the time, but I knew after the fact because he told me. He and I, they had this thing where sometimes these radio stations would have these concerts in the park, WBLS and what have you. They had this concert in the park. Not too far from that park, off the block, was a corner store. Me and him go in the corner store and we get all sorts of snacks and goodies and stuff. Mind you, we're still kids. I'm talking maybe fifth grade. We come out the store and standing there are two guys. One guy, the short guy, who's shorter than both of us, was standing in front of me. The tall guy, who was taller than my brother, who I've previously mentioned, was standing in front of him. They said to him, what you got now? Talking all that shit you was talking before. To say that shit now. My cousin, standing in front of the tall guy, looks at the tall guy, looks at the big guy. He goes, I'm sick of this shit. And then punches the short guy that's standing in front of him. And I had to fight the big guy. So, man, it's like a standoff, 2 and 2. And you should have been fighting the person in front of you. But he goes, I'm sick of this shit. And then swings on the little guy. And then I had to fight the big guy.
That's funny. But I can absolutely see that because I know who you're talking about.
You know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I know our cousin. So.
Yeah. He goes, I'm sick of this shit. And then swings on the little guy. And then I had to fight the big guy. Which, oddly enough, the little guy could scrap. My cousin beat him, but he could scrap. Big guy couldn't fight to save his life. He was just big.
You'll find that. You'll find that you will find like these really big guys. They've never had to fight in their lives. So unless they've been specifically sought out training, they usually don't know how to fight. They're just big.
And like I said, I was used to fighting my brother, who might have been maybe an inch shorter than the guy that I was fighting, but the guy was tall. Yeah. So, and that was just that. So now here's the third and most deadliest, not deadliest, but it was dangerous. I'm in Newark.
Yep.
Same cousin. Mind you, now we're in high school. We're in high school. I think it might have been my junior year of high school. We're in Newark. He takes me to a party in Newark in the projects. He's not from Newark. I am not from Newark. We've never lived in Newark. Well, I did at one point, but at that time in high school, we never lived in Newark. We did have family who's from Newark, and our family's name in Newark and Elizabeth carry a little bit of weight because of circumstances that I'm not going to talk about. But so go to a party. It's in this tower, really tall building. Might have been like 20 some odd floors. Might have been, but it was really, really tall. We go to this party. We're in there. We're talking to girls, dancing the whole night. The place was crowded, so we couldn't do much. But we're just talking to girls, and he's slow dancing with this one girl. A guy comes in and makes a beeline to the girl and says, "Yo, why you dancing with my why are you dancing with my girl? Why you all up on my girl?" And he goes out of him fucking Willie Dynamite. Your bitch chose me. Like he went in. He went in. I'm talking crazy to this guy. Crazy. I'm talking crazy. Mind you, my cousin could talk shit with the best of them. But he was just talking, your girl told me and choose mine. I mean, he went on some, it was like the Mac the way he talked. Like he was like Goldie talking to Pretty Tony. It was like one of them situations, right? So then the guy goes, a word? All right. Real calm. And then leaves.
Said what now? Real calm?
No,
real calm. Real calm.
He left real calm. He goes,
he said really calm. Got you.
He goes, really calmly. He goes, a word? All right. And just left and leaves. Leaves the party. Completely leaves the party. We're still there and we're just like nothing happened. The guy comes back with like 6 guys. Mind you, up on like the 20 some odd floor, however high this floor was, in the project that we don't belong. 6 guys come in. The guy said, "Oh, what you got to say now?" My cousin starts talking crazy again, like crazy. I get in between them because they're face to face. I'm talking, they're just going at it. And I get in between them and push them apart. And then one of the guys from behind the guy my cousin was talking crazy to had on these rings and it had like a diamond pyramid on all the rings. And he swings as I'm pushing them apart and I get punched and it cuts me. Like I had a used to have a bad scar right on my face where I got cut. My cousin swings back, punches that guy. And then we just start fighting. We fight. A melee happens. When the bad thing about so many people trying to jump one person is that you can't really get if you're part of the group, you can't get a really good swing because everybody's swinging. So they're bumping into one another and people are slipping and falling. So we fight and we fight our way out into the hallway. Out in the hallway were some more guys. No, that's not what happened. We ran down the hallway to the elevator. The elevator door opens, and then 2 guys are standing there, and then we're fighting the guys coming out the elevator. We get into the elevator, make our way down to the first floor. The door opens up, more guys. We had to fight some more guys out the elevator. Had to fight them out the lobby. Mind you, at this point, we're grabbing whatever we can grab, hitting people with garbage cans and bottles, and like we're just fighting. I'm talking, it's just a fight.
Gosh. This is a movie.
Then so we run outside. I threw a bottle. I ain't gonna lie, I ain't gonna stand like it's somebody else. There was back in the day, they used to take 40-ounce bottles. I threw a 40 bottle. and it hit a guy in the back of the head and stood as it hit his head. And then my cousins threw a 40 bottle, and then they start throwing bottles back at us, and then the guns come out, and they start shooting. And they're shooting at me, and they're shooting at him. We're dodging and ducking, and we had to run. I'm talking from this. I ain't gonna say where it was, but we had to run from where we were at in Newark all the way to Penn Station to jump on the train to get back to where we were at. So we're running. We had tickets already because you buy them prior to getting off and on the train. So we jump on the train and then we walk. So it's dark. We're running. We're not paying attention. When you get into the seated area of these trains in Jersey, it's lit up. It's like really bright. We walk into the doors where it's really bright, and we hear this woman scream like bloody murder.
Was that the PATH train or was that New Jersey Transit? What
New Jersey
train?
Transit. We were on New Jersey Transit.
Okay.
5 going back to Scotch Plains.
That's a different vibe right there.
Right, yeah. right.
So the lady screams bloody murder. We look at each other, and I have like a glass piece stuck in my shoulder. I'm bleeding from my eye. I got a scar on my face from bleeding. My hands are bleeding. My cousin's clothes are ripped. My clothes are ripped. It was just like a shit show. We just got to that bad of a fight because there were so many of them. It was just 2 of us. I'm talking, mind you, prior to this, hanging out in Brooklyn, I've been hit with a bat before. I've been hit with a chain before. I've had machetes pulled out on me. I've had like all sorts of anything you can think of as a weapon, a hammer. I remember I got into a fight on the train station with these guys and they had hammers. But so I've been in fights before, but this is the first time I was visibly scratched up, face bleeding, eye bleeding. There were just so many of them. The lady from the train, she called the conductor. The conductor asked, did we get assaulted? Did you get robbed? Do you want me to call the cops? And we were like, no, just get us the fuck out of here before them niggas with the guns. Just go. I don't want no part. Just go. You literally just go. Yeah.
Drive this train.
Yeah, please, because mind you, I was saying prior, they were shooting at us from the moment after the bottle being tossed, after the bottles being tossed at one another. From the moment that happened, they started shooting at us, and they followed and shot at us the whole time up until you got to downtown Newark, before you had to cross Broad Street, McCarter Highway, and all that other stuff to get to the train station. Yeah. NJ Pack. That's when they stopped shooting. But leading up to that, trying to duck and dive through these streets. Yeah, so the lesson I learned in that is beware of the company you keep, even if it's family, because they will get you some stuff. Tell me a story about the time you found your passion or purpose.
That's a good one. When I found my passion or purpose, which for me is to evolve, it is that simple. My entire life is wrapped around those simple words. The purpose of my life is to evolve. Everything came into alignment for me. Everything. All of the different things I've gone through, all the different people I met, the experiences I had, the trouble that I found myself in, and the joys that I found, it all made sense to me finally for the first time. It was all designed to help me to evolve, to become more than what I was, and to continue moving in the direction of what I was going to become. For me, that's a very central theme in my life. And once I also realized that I don't have all these different paths. I don't have a career path, a spiritual path, a family path, an entrepreneur path. It's all one path. It all came together into one path for me. And those are just aspects that add elements that have the opportunity to teach me something about myself. Once I recognized that, my life became very simple, very simple. So I honestly say I live without regret. I can honestly say that no matter what happens, whatever we perceive as good or perceive as bad, I perceive as adding to my path. It's advancing me towards where I'm going. So it just really made my life simple, and it makes me appreciate everything, including the things that don't go according to my plan, or things that someone else would say aren't going according to plan. Some of the worst things that happened to me taught me some of the best lessons. So I can't really regret those, because that's how I had to learn that lesson. That's just where I was at that time. So I would say, once I found my passion and my purpose, My life came into a oneness, an alignment that's hard to describe, but I'm still on it. I'm there, and I've been there for a long time now, and I love every minute of it. I love every moment of my path. It has been. It's going to sound corny, but I'm a corny guy. It's been an honor to be on this path, and I know it will continue to be, no matter what it brings me.
Do you have a specific individual thing that you say the core of it is this?
The journey is the destination. That's the thing I learned. Everyone says, it's not the journey, it's not the destination, it's the journey. The destination is the journey. The journey itself is what matters. It's you both are in film and TV and all of that, so you understand the hero's journey, right? And the heroes initially they're reluctant, they're comfortable in their life. They then move to a place where something happens and they choose, right? And they reluctantly have to become something they didn't want to be. Then they move into a place where life happens in a way that they become that thing. Then they win, and then they try to go back home, but they can't because they're different than where they started, right? The journey is the destination. All of us have a hero's journey. We're just in different places of it. And some of us are still denying our journey. Some of us are still in a place of, that didn't really happen, or I don't want this, right? All those things. We're still, but the way life will happen is, if there are things that you need to learn for your life's purpose, different things are going to continue to come your way until you learn those lessons. So until you learn the lesson, until you accept the lesson, you're going to continue to repeat it. That's my take. That's the experience I've had. For my life, that's true. That may not be true for everyone, but for my life, when I get stuck on something, circumstances continue around that theme until I get it, and then I can move on to the next thing.
Isn't there like a Greek quote or proverb that says something to the effect of, "No man walks to the same river twice, for he is not the same, but it is not the same river, and he's not the same man."
Probably somebody.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Kristen, same question. Tell me your story about the time you found your passion or purpose.
First of all, let me just put this out here. Following James is like, that scene in Harlem Nights, the shootout scene between Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall.
Yeah.
You're like, and then there's cat.
Yeah.
And he's like, put that lashman away. Say doing that, put that away. That's how I feel. I feel like James is like boom, 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 with like this eloquent, profound, like boom and life and yeah. And then I'm like, yeah, I like cheese. Yes. So I'm sorry to bring everything down, but I'm still looking for my purpose.
You do your best, Bobby Boucher. Yes, I do.
My mama said, no, I don't even like this whole life thing to me is just like, what is this? Passion, purpose. I don't know it yet. I really don't. But I will say this, something that as I continue to live, I see patterns and then there are revelations on those patterns like, oh, I didn't always do this. So I was having a conversation pre-pandemic with Sean Flynn, who was the manager at Gotham Comedy Club. We would always have these really good conversations about comedy and comedians. So I was like, yeah, I met Joan Rivers and it was just like, wow, this is a huge moment for me. I met her and had like a nice little conversation. I had a moment with Joan Rivers. So that was huge to me. And I'm telling him that I was telling her, I've been following you all my life. And in that moment, I'm telling him, I realized I've been a fan of stand-up comedy my entire life. And I hadn't put those pieces together, that this is something that's been with me and a part of me my entire life. Not as I became an adult, not after I left college, and not when I started on Def Comedy Jam. This was with me my entire life. I was always like, hey, so-and-so's on TV. You guys, let's watch this. Hey, such and such is going to be on tonight. I want to see that. And I was just a fan of everybody's stand-up. I didn't even know that I was following it that long. So that's kind of a passion.
So the time I found my purpose or passion, I was a freshman in high school. I was going to Marshall Fundamental High School in Pasadena, where I was living at the time. There was a childhood actor who I went to school with. who was a really big childhood star at the time. I'm not gonna say his name. He would get us, because he went to the school, he would get us tickets to tapings of his TV show. And we'd also get tapings to other TV shows. One day we go to the taping, I'm looking around, I'm seeing people do a bunch of different stuff, and I just find the production side of it really interesting. I was paying more attention to what the production people were doing than I was the actors on stage giving their performance. So then, not even a couple of days later, my father asked me, he said, out of the blue, never asked a question before, never something I ever thought about before. I was sort of just going oblivious through life, just going wherever the wind took me in terms of the fun. He says, so what do you want to do with your life? And I got nervous. And I said, I want to work in television. He goes, oh, tell me about it. And then I just started making shit up. I was like, oh, I want to be one that I want to be one of the sound guys to work on TV and do this, that, and the third, and production, and blah, 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 blah. I was like telling him all the things that I saw that I really never thought about doing. I just thought it was cool. So then he goes, okay. He goes, you know how you're going to do it? He goes, oh, yeah, you don't have to go to college. You can go to sound school, engineering school for this. And I was just talking out my ass. I was just making shit up, to be honest with you. But question came, I got nervous, and that's what was the answer that happened. But it had to come from somewhere, because I just talked about it. And I remember I asked you questions before about manifestations, about manifesting stuff. But I just spoke about it. What I wanted to do, is how I want to do it. The next year, like I told you, I went to two different high schools. I moved literally the next year. My sophomore year, I moved to Scotch Plains, Fanwood, and went to high school there. And in that school, they had two TV stations in the school. And I started working in the school TV station and started taking the classes. I really enjoyed it. Like, I really enjoyed the production part of it. And then I'm watching TV one day, and there was a TV station, which is now Cablevision, but before it was called Suburban Cable. And they had a local TV station. They were asking for interns on this commercial on TV. And I said, I want to do that. And my father said, well, then you should do it. So that was normally my father said you should do something. I do it. So I take down the phone number, call him up. I go to an interview. Mind you, I'm the only high school kid there. Everybody else is college or better. I'm the only person in a tie and a button-up shirt. Everybody else is like in jeans and like it's just an internship. So I go there, and mind you, this wasn't my first internship. This was my second internship, because prior to that, I was interning uh, for a guy named Half Pint and a woman named April Silvers.
Yes.
They had he had a promotion company called production company called Majestic Control, and she had a promotion company called Mouth Almighty. And Half Pint was partners with a famous producer named Marley Marl. So Marley Marl, and they had a radio show on Kiss at the time and what have you. So I interned for them first, and I met a bunch of people there in the process of me interning there, which led. So I got this internship. I was able to put that on the paperwork, say where I interned at, and I got this internship at Suburban Cable, and they let me do whatever I wanted to do in terms. But this stuff was like live on TV, like live shoots, football games, what have you. I got to do everything from direct to cameraman to what have you. Which then meeting those people there. So I was the youngest person out of everybody in that group. I was literally the only high school person. Everybody else was college or better. Some of the people, specifically several females, worked at bars and clubs in the city. And because they worked at bars and clubs in the city, the crew would always go out to the bars and clubs afterward, and I would always get invited, which then started my career of going to nightclubs, because they worked at the door, they worked at the bar, they would get me in, which then turned into me meeting more people, which then turned into meeting people in the film industry, television industry, which then turned into me getting an internship, which then turned into me getting a job in television. But it was through Suburban Cable, through just saying out loud, I wanted to do this thing, even though I didn't know what it was. I just thought it was cool to look at, I just wanted to be a part of it because it looked interesting. And I was put on the spot and I didn't have an answer. That's the first thing I can come up with. And that spawned a whole career just going being an intern. I mean, just watching a live broadcast of a TV show, which is a very popular TV show too. Both of those shows, the one that he worked on and the other one I went to, those people all went up to become really, really, really famous people. Yes, Kristen.
So you run the gamut of different various positions behind the scenes.
Mhm.
I'm going to go towards writing. What led you to, how did you find your way to writing being the thing? Or is that the thing? Or
No,
is that the thing for now?
I was working as a sound guy at Metro Channels. There was a guy there named Todd Crusham. Every
Question.
weekend, yeah, take Todd Crusham, really good dude, still works in the business today in maybe in Kentucky. Anyway, he still works in the business today. The guy named Todd Crusham. Every weekend, I would go out and do something with these people that I knew in the music and TV industry, mostly music industry. I'd go to parties, I'd be in clubs, I'd be wherever, right? So here's my naivete. Because I thought that everybody worked in television, I thought everybody had the same access that I had to things outside of television, meaning the clubs, parties, all the party promoters, the people that I knew. They didn't. I just happened to know everybody. So while I was a sound guy working at this, my friends were music producers, like music producing Mary J. Blige album, they were producing whatever. The guy who I used to intern for him was like the head guy over at Elektra Records when Elektra was around. Head A&R guy, who was a good guy. My guy Mayhem, he's really good too, Mayhem. So anyway, I knew these people, and I would be partying all weekend long, and they come back, and I would tell these stories about what I did over the weekend. And he was like, "Man, you tell the best stories. You need to write them down." That's how I got into writing. He
Okay.
just said, "You something you should do." And I was like, "All right, let me tell a story." And then I wrote a story. Had nothing to do with the stuff I was talking about, but I thought something was interesting, and I wrote it down.
Mhm.
But he sparked the idea of telling a story. Prior to that, when I was a kid, I was a runner for my aunts would have poker games or card games in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and in Plainfield, New Jersey. And I was the guy who used to run to the store to get cigarettes for them and used to get all those sorts of stuff. I was like, yes, I was like Eddie Murphy in Harlem Nights. I was that kid. I could remember everybody's smoking habits. Like someone smoked Newports, Cool 100s, the whole nine. And even these stores would let me buy alcohol for them and ice and stuff. Like I'd buy snacks and food. So anyway, while being there, collecting a couple of dollars because they'd let you keep the change, I had aunts and uncles and friends and people who would just tell the most amazing stories. And I picked up on how to tell stories based off of how they told stories because it was just these captivating stories of something as benign as learning how to swim. I remember someone told a story about how they learned how to swim, and it was this really chaotic story when the simple story was, oh, I got pushed into the water and I had to figure my way out. But the way they told the story had all this detail and all this other stuff into it, and it was so funny. I was like, so maybe subconsciously, I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And I started to mimic that in how I tell stories. And then that became writing later on.
And
So,
for those listening, back in the day, you could send a kid to the store to pick up cigarettes and alcohol.
mm-hmm,
And some stores would say send a note from your parents.
mm-hmm.
Others would just give it to you if you told them it was for them. But you could actually buy it on behalf of your adult family, bring it back. So
That's back in the day, you young old ass
Yeah.
slappy.
Mind you, like for
I'm
for
thinking you.
for a person my age, because I started so early, just running around and being around stuff, all anybody I knew was older than I was. And they would give me access to everything that they were doing. I learned how to drive a car because I knew somebody who had what was it? My favorite car to this day is a BMW M635 CSI. And they would let me drive it. Stick shift. That's how I learned how to drive a stick shift. Learned how to drive a motorcycle because I knew a guy who was a stunt man who taught me how to ride a motorcycle. So it was just like, but I was young, like really young, just doing all this stuff. I guess my last question, because I had a couple more. I had one about stealing, but I'm not gonna. We'll see if because I wanted to tell a story about a time.
Well, I'm no thief, so don't ask me about stealing.
I'll tell a story
my
another
answer went
time.
pretty fast too.
No, I'm not gonna go because my story goes long because James knows the story. I stole a car and my father's car and drove it from New Jersey to Atlanta and stayed there for a month with my dad's car.
And,
That's what.
and you are alive to tell that story?
There
Yes,
was a
and there's a
moment there where he
whole.
might not have been.
I might not have been, and there's a whole
That
thing
sounds like a
about it.
whole episode.
Oh, there's a yeah. It's
That is an episode.
it goes
We should
into
save that one.
Maybe you should
Let's-
do 35 TikToks.
yeah. There was I should do 35 TikToks. Yeah. Because
Now
we
save
go
that one
into-
for a future episode because that's a
Yeah.
story to tell.
Because then we got into a record label and it was insane in Atlanta. But anyway,
That's a whole episode.
there's a whole
There was
episode.
damage to the vehicle.
Damage to the vehicle. They broke into the vehicle. I had to bring it back with a busted window, a
Yeah.
leather jacket
Oh my
that was
God.
my dad's
All
got
that.
stolen. It was a
Yep.
whole
Did you
it was-
write
Yep.
this down? Did you write this down? Is this in
No,
any of your scripts? Any of your
I have it embedded in my brain because it's one of them things that you will never let down after all the drama.
Pop? You've been
But-
forgetting lately. You've been forgetting
No,
a lot
anyway.
lately, Pop. Please write it down.
All right. James, starting with you. After telling all these stories and other things that you have gone through in your life, what is your personal philosophy?
So I should say I'm a Taoist. So that kind of fell in line with my martial arts training. Tai Chi, from the yin yang symbol through statements like "go with the flow." All of that stuff comes from Taoism. Acupuncture, all that comes from Taoism. Taoists have a saying that says, as a philosophy, simplicity, patience, and compassion. And that has been my personal philosophy for now going on 27 years.
Say it again. Just
Simplicity, patience, and compassion.
simplicity, patience. Okay. Kristen, what is your personal philosophy?
God is love. But I don't look at God the same way everybody else looks at God. I don't mean everybody else, but I don't look at it as he sitting somewhere up on high looking down on us. I feel like love is consciousness, and this is everything everywhere all around us.
Kristen, you're a Taoist.
Can I just share quickly that I bought my son the Tao of Pooh, and it didn't have a lot of pictures in it when he was little. It didn't have a lot of pictures in it, so it's kind of a mature book for a kid. But I would read to him every night. This is after he got here, not in the womb. But I would let him pick his book. So one night he was just kind of feeling himself, and I was like, "Oh, you didn't get your book yet. Get your book." He might have been about 3 or 4, and he was just, I don't know, he was just acting up. And I said, "You know what? You got one more time, then I'm going to pick your book." So he showed out, and I said, "Get in the bed. I'm picking the book." So I picked up the Tao of Pooh, and he was like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't want that book. Don't pick that book." And I was like, "Oh no, this is the book that you had a chance. I gave you time." So I started reading it to him. He got into it. I didn't realize he got into it until the next night when I said, "Pick your book." And he was like, "Can we finish with the Tao?" And he let me know where I left off. How cool is that?
That's
Oh,
very
look
cool.
at you making up reading to him because you didn't do it while he was in the womb.
Because I was twerking while
You
he
causing
was
so
in the
much
womb.
trauma to his life. Yeah. Look at you coming back.
Yeah, listen, I did my part as a mom. As far I know, I did all that good stuff. But no, I reading to kids after they get here too is incredibly important. So
Absolutely.
it's
That's right.
very important, very impactful. So there's that. But yeah, no, I do believe all of this around us, everything, this is love right here. It's all around us. It's all everywhere. And we have an option to flow with it or not. And the choice is yours. And you're going with it, it means good, and going against it means bad. And it's funny because in Spanish, the word sin means without. And when I realized that, I had a moment one day, I don't remember when, it was a long time ago, because everything on this journey is just all scattered, but it's there. It's on the journey though. Sin without, to me, was like living without the light, not necessarily going against, going against, living without the light. Sin without the light. The light meaning the love.
So my personal philosophy, I've mentioned it before, submission to the will of God. That's my personal philosophy. I think everything encompasses in that. It's a lot of what James and Kristen both had to say in terms of just going with the flow and allowing experiences and the journeys to take you wherever it is that you're supposed to be. I do know that as I get older, I don't know what I'm doing. I know more that I don't know what I'm doing than I do know what I'm doing. So just go with the because anytime you try to put your own stamp on this thing, as opposed to going where life, God, energy, intentions are supposed to take you, you do yourself a disservice because you're doing a hindrance more than you are a service to yourself. With that being said, please like, share, and subscribe. This is the Ignorance Is Contagious Podcast. And until then, Kristen.
Thank you, everybody.
The Rock is in the building. Facto.